Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Forest Creek.
Welcome to the Forest Creek podcast. It's me, Raph. I'm here with Jarrod.
Hello.
You can talk when I say you can talk.
Yes, master. There's only 5 whippings.
On this episode of the Forest Creek podcast, we're reviewing stand-up, which is a thing that I've always wanted to do, and I want to do more often and more of it, especially when we go to see somebody live. I was originally going to sit down with Kyle when we were going to review Akash Singh. If you may have heard of Akash Singh, a very prominent Indian comedian from the States. Came up here to Vancouver to do a special. I feel like I've noticed this a couple times whenever I've seen stand-up in Vancouver, especially when like a comedian from the States visit us. Vancouver crowds for stand-up kind of suck. They kind of suck. There's like, they're half dead, half asleep, they're not very reactive, they get offended a little bit too easily. It's kind of lame. I feel like I'm embarrassed when like a comedian that I like comes over to try to entertain us, and then we suck. As a crowd, we just come into the theater with the wrong energy. It dampens the whole show. Akash, this one idiot had to shout out a couple times. I don't know, he sounded like some kind of French Canadian moron. Had to shout out at the stage. Akash got so pissed off that he spent the next 30 minutes just calling that dude a shithead rather than do the set.
Yeah.
Kyle liked it because he's dark and he likes that guy. But me, I wanted to see the bits. I wanted to see what he prepared. What do you have for us? No, one French Canadian dude. It was so sad. I felt bad. Tim Dillon was kind of the same thing, right? Because Tim Dillon, everything is so funny. My face hurt coming out of that theater. But the crowd, same deal. The crowd, when Tim Dillon came to perform, was sad. It was sad.
I don't know, do you remember he mentioned it? He was like, it's like we're at a comedy house first for 1 second and the next second back to a 9/11 memorial.
Well, that's the thing that they say about like some like European shows. European shows, even in like Japan or something, the audience will clap, they'll laugh, they'll cheer, and then they'll go right back to be dead quiet.
Yeah.
But that's because they have this thing where they are trying to appreciate the show as much as possible. So like stand-ups will mention that when they're talking about it, but in Vancouver, we just hate ourselves and we hate you.
I'm wondering because it's like the way I think of it, and I wonder how much of this is a local cultural mindset, that it's like, shut up, I want to hear the next joke. Stop laughing. That joke's done. I want to hear the next one, so shut up.
I heard one time a few comedians were talking. There was actually a great panel that is probably somewhere on YouTube. It's Louis C.K., Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Bill Burr.
Dang.
And the 4 of them just talking about stand-up. And one time, I think Jerry was explaining is like, when the audience is laughing, stay in the bit. Just wait. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to get to the next bit, but it's important that you don't lose the energy.
Yeah.
Today, we're reviewing Infamous. Infamous is the stand-up special by Andrew Schulz, and there is a significance to this special, which is part of the reason why I wanted to be reviewing it as one of the first specials we actually talk about on the show. The reason why it's so interesting is because, so the story behind it, most comedians nowadays, the big gig is releasing your stand-up special on Netflix. Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, Louis C.K., their specials on Netflix are amazing. I probably got really, really into Louis C.K. when I was in high school because his special, Live at the Beacon Theater, came out on Netflix, and it was one of the most amazing stand-up shows. To this day, I think it's one of the best. But this special, what happened is Andrew Schulz, who was like a rising star throughout the pandemic, did his stand-up special, and then was in negotiations with Netflix. And Netflix comes up to him saying, we would like you to cut a couple things out. He goes, no. He ends up saying, if you're going to make me cut things, I'm not going to release it with you. I'm going to take it myself. So he bought his special back from Netflix, which is like a crazy deal.
Yeah.
Decides he's going to release it and promote it himself. So a comedian just going off of his own fame, his own connection with his fans.
Yeah.
And then releasing his special through, they did it through Moment House, which we're going to get to in a minute. Moment House, the ticket people online. He released it for a couple of weeks. It came out January 17th. It was live for a couple of weeks, and now you can't get it anymore.
Yeah.
Jared and I watched it 100% legally just recently, and now we're here to review it for you.
You paid for it.
Yeah.
Boom.
I paid for it, and I watched it through the appropriate means. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't send Moment House an email about, how tragedies had befallen me, and the doctor gave me only just a week to live. So before we start talking about the special, I kind of wanted to get into this thing, which I've been meaning to talk about on the podcast for a while, but I didn't know what the best way to bring it up would be. There is an old establishment Hollywood. There is the new internet world, right? Old establishment Hollywood, you do your rounds of stand-up. You keep performing at the clubs. Some agent notices you, gives you a TV special. Either you go on and do, a Comedy Central stand-up special, or you get a sitcom deal. You get a deal to produce a show. You come up and become famous through that. Soon enough, you're making the rounds on late night television. There's actually the very famous thing, David Letterman was one of the most famous late night show hosts. He does this thing called The Wave. You do your stand-up special, which is like a regular thing comedians do, and then he gives you the wave, come over and sit with me here by the late night show desk, and let's talk a little bit so you can romance the audience. And then the audience that you romance on television is going to follow you to the next thing you do. Whether it's a TV show or whether they come and actually see you at night. That's like how people like Seinfeld become famous. Nowadays, you have this completely other world, and let's enter a new character that we've talked about here before, Joe Rogan. Basically a stand-up comedian. He does the UFC thing, but the podcast that he grows becomes like a hub for other stand-up comedians. Now he is the platform that launches people out.
Yeah.
Case in point, Tim Dillon. We come back full circle. But now we're in a world where comedians run their own podcasts, they run their own platforms, they run their own spaces, they promote themselves, they do their own thing, they promote each other. And the establishment that used to give them the wave, come on here, come on, do your bit on Comedy Central, it's still there, it still gets them on, but it's not nearly as pivotal.
Yeah.
Right? Who's your favorite comedian, aside from Tim Dillon?
Oh,
you mentioned it on the last podcast. You like Mark Normand or something?
Oh, Mark Normand's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah. He probably would have been great in establishment. He's much better because he does his own podcast, does his own appearances. He does these other appearances on the other podcasts. This network, the new thing, the new world, much better. There is a new establishment too. The streaming services, Netflix, right? This is the new establishment. We decide what does and does not happen. We cut your jokes.
I think what's interesting about this Andrew Schulz one in terms with the Netflix deal is that when they made the deal, part of the agreement is that he got to do whatever he wanted and they wouldn't cut anything. And then after he made it and they were going to put it on, they're like, we want to cut stuff. He's like, that was not part of the deal. No cutting.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
They actually went back on their deal a little bit then.
Yeah, 100%. Because they went into it and he said, I say whatever I want and nothing gets cut.
To be fair,
like, okay.
Netflix has actually been having quite a serious problem, especially regarding like the Dave Chappelle specials, as I previously mentioned. Every time Dave Chappelle does something, it is a trans nightmare. Apparently, it is just the worst, most transphobic thing, and it needs to make headlines, and people need to, like, there's literally, whenever he does a show now, people go protest outside, right? Because Dave Chappelle is the most dangerous thing. Like, what happened to Christian conservatives being the bad guys?
Yeah.
Remember those days?
They were great.
At least they made a little bit more sense. But then you see the LGBT people yelling at the black comedian, and you're like, what happened? Not diving into that, but now because of stuff like that happening, Netflix super trepidatious. They're like, what are we spending a ton of money on to put on our streaming service that is just going to get us yelled at more, and then our own employees are going to protest us? Netflix actually, to their credit, they started turning around in the latest Dave Chappelle things. They started coming around and being like, they actually put a memo out to their employees saying that we have to put stuff up here.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with everything we put up here.
Yeah.
Maybe Netflix is not the place for you if you don't like a wide variety of ideas. Whoa.
That's good.
We come to Infamous, the Andrew Schulz special. he promoted the heck out of himself. And being that Andrew Schulz is in that Rogan network, the podcast network, he does the rounds. He's very popular. His podcast, they call it Flagrant 2. There was a Flagrant 1 where I guess they talked about sports, and then Flagrant 2 was just where they talked about everything.
Yeah.
But then Flagrant 2 became more popular because it's more culturally relevant. As someone who doesn't listen to sports or do anything at all with sports, I don't know anything. Of course, it's more interesting to me. Right. So Infamous comes out. He promotes the heck out of himself. He does his own marketing. Their podcast, Flagrant 2, is very good. They put a lot of production effort into it. If you've ever watched it on YouTube, they have a beautiful set. Both sets that they've had are very beautiful. They got the chairs, they sit down, they got the mic arms that come up to them. They look very comfortable. Everybody's having a great time. They're great showrunners. I've only ever seen them mess up once with Shane Gillis. But yeah, they've had Alex Jones on, as I've mentioned to you before. It is a pretty popular show. They do a really good job at keeping their fans together. That is where we actually got to know Akash that Kyle and I went to see. My sister had apparently gone to see Andrew Schulz before.
Oh, sweet.
The other thing about Andrew Schulz, let's get into a little bit of his pandemic stardom. So he got really famous by doing these videos on Instagram. Turn your phone sideways. What I'm talking about is these videos where he would say a couple headlines to the camera, and then he would turn to another angle and say, turn your phone sideways, and you would turn your phone sideways to get into the full video, the full viewing pattern on Instagram, where he would then just go do a tight 5 to 10 minute set. One-liner after one-liner after one-liner with like an excellently cropped meme in the corner of the thing.
Yeah.
The most recent headlines, it's the catchiest thing ever. It's so tight, and everything he says is nuclear. It is so hot in terms of like how to the point it is. He does these throughout the pandemic when everyone's looking at their phones. Obviously takes off like crazy. Ends up doing Flagrant 2 to kind of back it up, which is the beautiful thing about a podcast is it's an excellent place for you to centralize, your brand a little bit, because this is where people come to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Like you do with us here at the Forest Creek. But he does this for a while, enters into the Rogan sphere, right? When Joe Rogan gives you the wave now, and you come and sit down with him, not for 5 minutes like David Letterman did, but for 3 hours.
Yeah, instead of the wave, it's the, and we're live.
What's up, freak? Which is the Joe Rogan thing, right? Here's have some elk meat or whatever. Some of this alpha brain. And
I want that to be the new Joe Rogan line. Yeah, have some elk meat or whatever. That's like one of those botched cakes or something that has a bootleg Bart Simpson on it. This is eat pant. Have some elk meat or whatever.
That's my catchphrase because we don't want to steal from Rogan. Yeah. Like I said before on a previous podcast, I'm going to infiltrate the sphere. Okay, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to talk to Joe Rogan. I'm going to have some elk meat.
On the podcast.
Andrew Schulz becomes very popular, enters this thing. Popularity explodes like many other comedians. Credit to Joe Rogan. He's used his podcast as a place to launch authors, filmmakers, documentarians, writers, and tons of comedians, musicians, which is a really cool thing to do with your show, and I hope to be able to do something similar one day.
Yeah.
And here we are at Infamous. Promotes the heck out of the show. The stand-up special goes live. He's running it himself from Moment House. Moment House. They are like a online streaming service for events, right? You can running a concert. People can't attend the concert in person. They buy a ticket on Moment House. They attend virtually. And then it's actually replayable for a short period of time. If for whatever reason you bought a ticket months ago and then work came up, family came up, and you missed the showing, we don't know you. We don't know you. We've never heard of you before. We don't know anything about this ticket or show that you bought. Bye-bye. Which is a sad thing to do, especially in the days of the internet where everything is you can go back and watch live at the Beacon Theater now.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is on. What is this? It's only available for a limited time. It's a little bit to like emulate, if you buy a ticket to go see somebody in person and you miss that show, you miss that show.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a dick move to do it online when everything is digital, but being how it is. So, and actually, Louis C.K. went on Flagrant 2 recently and talked about this. About the ticket people run the world in some sense when it comes to this entertainment stuff, especially if like Ticketmaster, for instance.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll release them. We'll get them out of the equation eventually. Snoop Dogg's trying to do it through NFTs.
Is that still going on?
Oh, yeah. No, Snoop Dogg's never stopped with this Ethereum thing. Yeah, we're going to mint the rapper onto the block. He has all kinds of crazy ideas, but we could talk about that in another podcast. What did you think of the intro?
I thought it was great.
Do you want to elaborate on what it was?
They got the UFC guy, the biggest hype man in the world.
Right, let me look up his name real quick.
Yeah. I thought it was so weird that he introduced him as the ultimate heavyweight champion of the world or something. It's like I was expecting some joke about like a great comedian.
Right. Bruce Buffer, who is the UFC announcer, famous. You'll see him every time. The catchphrase, in my opinion, no. Yeah, he does that every time. He's very, very, very pronounced. He's an excellent announcer.
Yeah.
Andrew got him to do the announcement to open the Infamous special. I don't know why it was called Infamous. The word doesn't come up a single time. When a comedian names their special, sometimes they'll go live at this, right? For instance, live at the Beacon Theater.
Yeah.
Or they will call it something that is in the special.
Yeah, it's a theme of the special. Yeah.
Yeah, like equanimity and the bird revelation. Dave Chappelle, right? Joe Rogan does other. Let me look up.
Joe Rogan does a thing.
Louis C.K. hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even something as basic as that.
Yeah. But it comes up because hilarious is actually a joke that he does in the set.
Oh, dang.
Right? Let's look up a couple of Joe Rogan ones, for instance. Joe Rogan has done Triggered. He's done Strange Times. He's done Talking Monkeys in Space. Right? Very on brand, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah. My point being is that
it has something to do. Yeah.
Has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I don't know where that comes from.
Is he trying to bestow infamy onto himself?
Maybe he had some offensive jokes, and that was why?
Then call it offensive. Why are we calling it infamous? Infamous means you're more famous than famous. I don't think you're that famous, bro.
Earlier I was at my parents' place, and they're like, oh, what are you going to do today? I was like, oh, we're watching Andrew Schulz comedy special. My dad's like, never heard of him.
Yeah.
And when you were like, yo, Andrew Schulz on Tim Dillon, I was like, who's Andrew Schulz?
Yeah. So, great branding. Yeah, could have been titled a little bit better. Bruce Buffer opening your show, awesome.
Yeah.
The opening didn't make sense. No. Because he comes up saying, the heavyweight champion of the world. It's like, hang on, do you mean the skinniest guy in the business is suddenly the heavyweight champion of... write something for Bruce Buffer to say.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because it's like, oh, he's just doing... It was so cool. And then he said ultimate heavyweight champion of the world. And I was like, oh, he's just doing his line from UFC.
It was like, yeah, it was atmospheric.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
It was. Like, it was a great big special, but the fact that he didn't come up with a different title for himself, like something maybe using the word infamous.
Right. Oh my God.
That might have been like, oh, that's why it's called Infamous.
All right. Curtains open.
Yeah.
By the way, the theater itself, very lovely looking place.
Yeah.
I like it was very bougie. Right. Very chic. The curtains open. Andrew comes out. Another thing, the dress, the way that comedians dress, sometimes it's the statement. Louis C.K. always wears the black shirt.
Yeah.
In the same way that George Carlin always wore black sweater.
Yeah. Same way
I don't
Bert
want you to
Kreischer.
be distracted from what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Bert Kreischer, shirt off every time. Right? Joe Rogan actually talks about the thing. He always tries to wear a baggy shirt because he feels like when he walks up there like a muscly cut guy, people are distracted.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Right. It kind of like, even if he did, I feel like it wouldn't take away anything because his whole thing is he walks up there, it's like, whoa, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like he's really like highly energetic, so it feels appropriate.
Yeah.
Right? Comedians who wear suits. I'm here to do my job. In that sense.
Yeah. That's like, what's his name? The guy that wears a suit, played Spider-Pig.
What?
John Mulaney.
Oh, John Mulaney, yeah.
He wears a suit all the time.
Yeah.
And he sounds like that's the persona he has. That's the way his voice sounds like he's a fancy businessman.
Well, he sounds like he's a traditional comedian.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? In the same way, Seinfeld wore suits, traditional comedian. I don't think of any other examples.
Will Smith, orange jumpsuit.
But Andrew comes out. He looks spiff and span as usual. Like, to their credit, on Flagrant 2, everybody looks really good. Everybody's always dressed to the nines. Like, nice sneakers, fresh haircuts. Everything looks really good. Same ways their set looks good, they look good.
Yeah.
Consistent with the style, Andrew's very much the same. I feel like there was a slight turn because at some point they took their show to Miami and they started doing their podcast from there. And the Flagrant show became a little bit more flagrant in design. And I feel like that's where a lot of the floral colors and stuff like that and the shirts started coming out. It was a little bit of that in the special as well.
I kept noticing how deep the V on his neck was.
Well, you can afford that if you're skinny. Nobody wants to see Bert Kreischer in a deep V.
That would be amazing. I want to see Bert Kreischer in a deep V.
Gay in a deep V. With just some of the ginger chest hairs coming.
Tim Dillon in a deep V.
I want Tim Dillon to do his next special in like full Balenciaga, like straight off the fashion line, because he could afford it and he would do it.
Yeah. I want to do his next special in the Corona Ball outfit.
Oh my god. He was talking about that recently, just a quick side, about doing the show, the bits, the skits and stuff, the videos where he would dress up. And he says like he doesn't do it as much anymore because he's rich and he's famous and he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Right? He did it before because it would make people pay attention.
Yeah.
Go to the Forest Creek right now and watch me in a bee costume. I'm still in that phase.
I freaking love. It was from one of his recent podcasts, I think. I can't remember because I've been watching the recent ones and the older ones. But he's like, he did a bit as Anthony Fauci's son. He's just splashing around in a bathtub going, I'm Tony Fauci's son. Forget about it. He's just splashing water everywhere. Oh, it freaking killed me.
I like the bit when he was doing like Steve Bannon and he just had his nose bleeding.
I like how this is the Andrew Schulz episode and we're just talking about Tim Dillon.
We're gonna do that no matter what.
Yeah.
But Andrew Schulz, one of the things I really like about the set, the red background.
Yeah.
The red background was a really good choice.
It was probably because it was originally made for Netflix.
I mean, not necessarily. I think it also just lends an intensity to the situation. Because when Andrew Schulz is up there, he runs a show called Flagrant. He's known for being very nuclear with his things, especially like those 5-minute videos he would do, turn your phone sideways. Very hot material. Known for being offensive. Big publicity behind Infamous because of being asked to cut jokes in the first place. So doing it in red, lending that intensity, that's a very smart move. One thing I thought was really interesting, there's a lot of focus on the audience in the special.
There is. They cut to him quite a bit. At least initially. I don't know if it happened as much later in the special. I can't really remember.
I think from the beginning, the audience is lit up. Other shows, someone who's been on stage like myself, the audience is supposed to be dark.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're looking out onto the stage, like I literally cannot see anybody.
It should just be a black sea of silhouettes in some sense. You should be, see a few people in the front row, but like the audience is like almost fully 100%, visible.
Dude. Like I think that's probably. I haven't seen a lot of other comedy specials, but it's probably because he does so much crowd work.
Yeah,
and he does it with people that are far away in the balcony. Like one of the first few people he talks to is up in the top left corner.
Yeah, the Somalians.
And he talks about his teeth.
Yes.
I'm like, you can see that this guy's got braces from all the way up there. You kidding me? How good is this guy's freaking vision?
Yeah, so as soon as he opens it up, the audience is lit up, and then he surveys the audience.
Yeah.
Right? He looks around and be like, oh, you're a Latina?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, makes a crack about it. His crowd work is impeccable. Right? There is not a stutter, not a slip. Everything is one-liners. He puts it together very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, it's the wordplay with Andrew Schulz, like the weapons that he has. It is very tight. He's very talented, very skilled. I was saying, like, I think before we started recording the podcast that I do think that the special itself was a little bit overhyped. When I've been so exposed to a comedian, I'm watching their podcast, I'm seeing them on Instagram, they're posting clips up, the clips are really good. I'm almost coming into the show expecting the whole special to be like that good. I'm expecting my face to hurt. And I was a little underwhelmed. And I think it's because he was so hyped up here, and it just turned out to be the same thing as normal, right? I thought it would be like a special. I always feel like it's supposed to be this very well packaged, very clean, very worked out. And to his credit, he probably did work really hard on all that.
Definitely.
I just don't feel like it was that amazing.
I thought it was pretty good, but earlier it hit me when you asked what was your favorite joke, and nothing stuck out to me. It was like it was all funny, and I was laughing at 90% of what was going on, and the stuff I didn't laugh at was because I didn't hear what he said, so I probably would have laughed, but it wasn't like
You also laugh at anything.
I'm a laughing person, but but it's like, yeah, there was nothing that stuck out as that was the most amazing joke. Whereas watching the Tim Dillon podcast, I still think about his ads.
Right. I don't think I would repeat any of the jokes from this special to my friends.
Yeah.
Maybe like one or two things I can mention here, like the Ted Bundy bit was really good.
Yeah, right. I forgot about that.
Right.
Dude, the Volkswagen thing. that I think that might have been the best part. Although that's just because
So let me get to a little bit to the point of the special, because I feel like I kind of understood the theme a little bit. From the get-go, when he starts by opening about politics, and first off, very smooth segue, because he points at the white guys up in the balcony and be like, how did you enjoy storming the Capitol?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Typical joke to make in our time. And then he does the transition from that to, I miss Trump.
Yeah.
Which is, I like that bit. It kind of like settled the air a little bit when you do a joke like that, because it's like, well, that's not something that people would admit in polite dinner conversation, but he was very entertaining, and he was right. He was like, that was an entertaining presidency, and things didn't feel nearly as bad as they do now.
Yeah.
By comparison. And it kind of opened the air a little bit. But the interesting thing about it, and he started doing it in this bit, and then he did it the rest of the way. The real people who are offensive, the real people who are the problem, are you and me. It's us who have the prejudices and the tendencies and everything. It's not the person on stage. Because even when he is doing that on stage, he's embodying us.
Yeah.
Right? That comes out in a lot of his bits about race or about sexism or any of that stuff. We're the real bad guys in that sense. And that, it comes the whole way through. It goes from like the MAGA hat at the Baskin Robbins joke, which is, I'm going to stick on this for a second, because he didn't finish that story. It didn't feel like he finished it. Started with this guy on the MAGA hat, the Baskin Robbins, and the woman in the Viking outfit was yelling at him. There wasn't an end to that story. Where's the punchline? Where's the funny thing that the guy in the MAGA hat says, or the funny thing that he walks into the conversation and says? It was just a snapshot, and then we moved on.
Yeah.
I almost thought it was going to be like, because I've seen a lot of comedians do that with a story where they start there, then they do several bits in the way, and then they finish off.
Yeah, I guess he got to the bits, because I think his point with that was how he said she's completely ignorant about what she's representing.
Yeah.
Being dressed as a Viking, talking about abusing women is bad.
It's like, where are you coming from? That you're dressed up as a Viking.
Yeah.
Were you LARPing?
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, but he didn't finish that story. So I was like, okay, I guess we're moving on. Because he did finish like one of the other stories here or there. Talks a little bit about Michael Jackson, for instance. The Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan bits. Those were really good. And one of the things that I recognized there is that there was a point in he's talking about turning out to be molesters, pedophiles, as the case with Michael Jackson was. And then he stops and he goes, Michael Jordan. And he doesn't say anything. He just lets the audience take it. We know where you're going with the bit, but we still think it's really funny that you're going to go there.
Yeah.
I thought it kind of reminded me a little bit of, there's these two other bits, one that Dave Chappelle does, one that Louis C.K. does. You might have heard this Dave Chappelle one. He talks about how he's so good at stand-up that he can pick a punchline out of a fishbowl.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And he does a bit where he starts telling a story and everything, and then he ends it with, I kicked her right in the pussy, which is like the thing he told you he was going to do, and then he does it.
But he makes you forget about it.
Right.
Which was so freaking incredible, dude.
Louis C.K. does a very similar bit where he kind of gives you pretext so that you know it's going to be funny. He does this thing where it's like, okay, but maybe. All right, of course, but maybe.
Yeah.
Of course, it's so bad that kids have peanut allergies and we should protect them. But maybe. And every time he says, but maybe, in that line of jokes, you laugh. Because you know he's going to say something outrageous. So you're ready for it. Schulz does something similar. But I also found he does this other thing that's almost like, it's almost anti-momentum. when he stops and takes a breath, he goes, and I don't know if it's good or bad to let your audience just settle down like that again. Because in some degree, you're losing your momentum. It does kind of speak to how skilled he is that he can let them lose momentum and then pick it back up.
Yeah. I wonder if that comes from the idea in filmmaking and editing sort of thing, where it's like, because when you're making a movie, the idea is you're controlling your audience's emotions. I think it's the same thing in a comedy special, or with like most things when you're presenting something to an audience, is you're controlling their emotions. And part of that in editing is making your audience feel tense, having them like grip the seat with what's going on. But you have to have that. That's comedic relief. Yeah. It's like that's where they go. They step back. They can untense. So maybe that's the sort of thing he was going for. It's like keep them laughing, keep them laughing, keep them laughing. Now chill out a bit.
That's one thing to do in a live room, right? When you're playing on that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm sitting at home like we're watching the special on screen, it's a mood killer. A little bit. I found it a mood killer because when you're watching a movie, you got to move from location to location.
Yeah.
From scene to scene. Makes sense that you have breaks and that you cut tension, that you bring it back up here and there. With this special, I'm staring at one thing on the screen, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
It's one scene. You may be taking me through bits in my head, but if you cut my attention, I'm having less fun than I could if we kept that momentum. Right? It's that thing of my face hurt when I went to see Tim Dillon live.
Yeah.
Because he kept going.
Yeah.
He kept building and building and building and building. That the cut for tension is the end where he says, "That's all for me, goodbye."
Yeah.
Right? If he'd stopped and been like, what else?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I see what you mean. I
don't know. I don't know if it's a very strong criticism because it works both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that if a weaker comedian had done that, it would have been condemnation.
Yeah.
Schulz can pull it off, but I feel like the special might have been weaker because of it.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
What else?
What else do we got here? Let's see. One thing that Schulz is really good, we mentioned this before, the one-liners. He finds a way to like tie up the bit in a single phrase.
Mm-hmm.
One good example is he's talking about this bit about prejudices, where he sees a Middle Eastern man standing on a carpet.
Yeah.
And, the implication is the Aladdin kind of thing. You're going to make the carpet fly, blah, blah, blah. But he says one line in it where he says, like, it's Fast and Furious Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
That was a really good one-liner. He's done many, many of those throughout the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a really excellent job. He's specifically very talented at those.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe one of his strongest weapons when he's up on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of any that stuck out to you?
In regards to the Arabian Nights one, I thought it was a confusing segue into a joke that I didn't see coming, because the first thing he was talking about was how his fiance or wife or someone said, I need an ottoman. It's like, so they went to IKEA, and where I thought he was going, because for whatever reason popped in my head, Ottoman Empire, let's get an ottoman.
Oh, because you don't know what ottomans are because you're uncultured.
Yeah, there you go. So
we have one in this room right here.
No, I knew that. Oh my gosh. It's like the play on words. I thought that's what he was going for. Sees an Indian guy, Ottoman. Yeah, I thought that's what he was going for. And then he started talking about the Arabian Nights and the carpet, and I was like, oh, okay. We're in a completely different joke now.
Right, but the story didn't finish.
Yeah,
I don't know where the heck he was going.
Yeah, it's like
right?
There was no. It was more so there were two jokes. One didn't end and one didn't start.
You know what it kind of feels like? It's like, imagine your mom calls you and tells you, "Can you come in this room?" And then you go into the room. And you're like, "What?" And she's like, "I just wanted to call you in here." That's what it feels like when you don't finish a story, especially when it's a bit. It's like, bring me to the punchline.
Mm-hmm.
Every story that I've heard comedians do, think, for instance, Bert Kreischer and the Machine.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
The story has a beginning, middle, end. Right? It's got jokes in between. He takes you on little segues here and there, but he finishes the story. Schulz didn't finish any stories. He just called me into the room and then, oh, that's all. I just wanted you here. What? Do you think anything in that was particularly offensive? I kept thinking, like, what jokes did Netflix want to cut?
The blackface one and the abortion one. The blackface and the abortion is what they wanted to cut. I guarantee it. 100%.
It was like, I'm not saying it was a bad joke. I'm saying that it didn't feel even close to offensive.
Yeah.
It's like, especially if you're doing the joke and then you're cut the camera again onto the audience, and the audience is laughing.
Yeah.
The black guy is smiling. What?
I mean, think about the facts that Netflix removed the D&D episode of Community because Ken Jeong was dressed up as a drow, painted in like blackish, dark purple.
Which
but
was
it's like,
the joke.
That's not blackface. He's an imaginary elf being.
Right. You're
It's
telling
like-
me elf beings can't have jokes?
It's like, it was hilarious, and they cut that out because of all blackface controversy.
Maybe that just speaks to how weak Netflix is.
Netflix doesn't want to talk about any of that stuff.
Yeah. Look out for my special on Netflix. It's called Blackface. Raphael Shahad
Just
Alive.
called blackface. That's your special name. Just called blackface.
Yeah, it's like, it says Andrew Schulz, infamous. Raphael Shahad Blackface.
Boom.
Oh man, I'll do it through Moment House too. Yeah, but like, there's nothing that seemed particularly like, even the abortion materials. Like, that's not very. It's not like it's anti-abortion.
No,
Even.
it was just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hard. Like, what?
I enjoyed it.
I thought it was like okay. I was like, did need to really spend this much time here? It was like you took your couple jabs, but it almost felt like he had. I gotta say something about abortion, then checked it off on the list.
One thing I thought he did really good about it was his whole intro. He was calling abortion scoops. Like, that was his whole. He wasn't saying the word for like a good 2 to 3 minutes,
Right.
and then he just says it.
I like.
And I was like, that was so good.
That's a really good point, because this is where one of the places where I like the pause, because he said, "What happened here in Texas? They're taking away your scoops."
Yeah.
And he talks about like different birth, control methods, and he does the abortion jokes and everything, and then he takes the pause again, and then he goes, "Oh, abortion."
Yeah, he just says it. It was so good.
That was a good. That
Like,
was a
that
good
was
use of it.
brilliant. Not skirting around the word for a solid 3 minutes, and then just saying it on its own. Nothing around it.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like the way he said it too was almost like that. We know we hate talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we hate talking about it, why bring it up? He goes from there to doing jokes about sexism, which were kind of funny.
I remember them being good.
They were pretty good.
I don't remember what they were though.
He does this thing about like, oh, all the women are protesting so that they could do the same thing as men.
Oh yeah.
I was like, yeah, we know. You and Bill Burr does feminism every special. You're not bringing anything new to the table here.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to say, the Harry Potter fetus deletus joke. No way did he come up with that. That's so freaking old. That's been on the internet for so insanely long. That is not new in the slightest.
But like, here's the thing, you say that, where?
Dude, randomly on forums and things. People have always been using that phrase. It's
I feel like
so
I have
old.
seen it in a meme,
Yeah.
but the thing is, like, I can't credit
I'm
any
just
other
gonna-
comedian with it.
No, not comedians. That's the thing. It's just people
just
on the
the
internet.
internet, yeah.
I'm just going to Google fetus deletus.
Listen, that thing about red pilling also being applied to social situations where you realize something, that's me. I came up with that.
There's a fandom, a Harry Potter fandom Wikipedia with it has a fetus deletus. This is the first thing. I just Googled fetus deletus. May 23rd, 2017 is this page called fetus deletus on the Hogwarts fandom.
Real strong, Andrew. Dang.
Look at this. It's even in a joke form. This is not new. I remember this stuff in high school. That's the one joke, and the whole special is like, that's not your material. That's just general internet material.
And the thing is,
It's
like,
even
he's
on-
so good at doing the one-liners. I bet he could have come up with something funnier.
There's an artist on Spotify called Fetus Deletus.
Oh my god. Man, I want to like this special.
Yeah.
I want to like it, but there's just what is this? So to kind
I
of
was
pivot
shocked.
off of this for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes from talking about abortion. He does a couple good things in abortion. I will give him the sonograms thing. Was pretty funny.
Yeah, that
You
was
know, when
good.
they
I like
updated
that.
the sonograms. Now it's on 40 or whatever. That's funny.
Dude, the joke about the daughter, it's like your girl's so hot. It's like, she's 10. It's like, yeah, but if you wait, let her grow. That was pretty good. I liked that.
I thought it was good. It just wasn't, great.
Yeah.
Which is, again, you called your special infamous.
Yeah.
You had Bruce Buffer come out here. You made such a big deal
Yeah.
about this, and then I'm sitting here going, well, it's good.
No, 100%. I think I'm with you there. The intro was awesome, but the intro was so much more hype with the fact that I only remember jokes when you bring them up and go, oh yeah, that was the joke he said.
The thing is, the way he talks about this, and the way that people like came to believe it, you know, this special, he's taking it off of Netflix, he's doing it himself. There is so much. It's like, this is the special that's gonna kill the establishment old Hollywood world. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Could you have been a little bit more humble and just been like, hey, I have a special, I'm doing it myself. Not, we're gonna revolutionize the game with this infamous special.
Let's bring it to YouTube clickbait. Nobody's gonna come to your show if you go, hey guys, I'm doing a show. Yeah, if you go, this show is gonna revolutionize the industry, Netflix is going down. You're like, I want to see that.
I know now I'm not watching Flagrant 2 for a while. I'm a little disappointed.
I'd never heard of it before this podcast, and I'm not going to. I mean, I like Mark Normand and I love Sam Morril, but I don't care about their podcast.
Honestly, on the other hand, if it was Tim Dillon in here, I'd be in here like the Samaritan woman washing his feet. There's an old Bible one for you. Right. So he goes into talking about feminism a little bit, and then he talks about, then he gets into talking about sex. Right? Naturally, you go there from birth control and the abortion talking about sex, and feminism, and all that stuff. Comedians get stuck talking about sex. And to be fair, there's a lot of material there. It's just that, like, is this where you want to stop people? Is where you want them to get stuck? I'll admit, I'm not a big fan of these jokes. Like, sometimes they're funny. Sometimes it's just like, can we move on to the next bit? Can you take us to the next area? Louis C.K. has a thing where he spends like 30 minutes talking about balls. Talks about testicles for 30 minutes. Enough. It was funny for the first 3 minutes. I'm here for 10 times that amount, and you're still here. Comedians get stuck talking about sex. I feel like they can hit it and move on pretty easily.
Hit it and quit it.
Yeah. To be fair, though, in the structure of the special, he does this whole bit and then he ends on bits about ejaculation and orgasm, which is how sex ends and therefore how the special ends.
Yeah. So
that bit was nicely structured to some degree because he finishes off about talking about loads. Funny. It was good that he did that and that it was over. The special was about 50 minutes, which is pretty standard. But also, didn't feel strong.
One thing I'll give it to him is that it didn't feel like 50 minutes. I felt it was like half an hour. It went fast.
I feel like it
was really enjoyable. Like it was entertaining and really enjoyable, and it flew by.
Yes.
But it's also, I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Granted, that's also kind of the person I am, but
I don't feel like anything hit me very hard throughout the thing. And that wasn't very hot material. Like, there was a couple places where I was like, oh, that's really funny. Yeah. That is kind of, like, offensive and on the edge and, like, cool. And I'm glad I was there for those jokes. But that was, I want to say, like, 20% of it. The rest of it was, like, I mean, I feel like I could have just watched your podcast. Here's one of the things that I feel like hurt the special. He took the best jokes and he put them online for free.
Did he? Yeah. Like he put clips of the special out?
You can go to his Instagram right now and you can watch the best spits there. You didn't need to pay the $20 on Moment House to go watch this stuff. All the best bits of this special are on YouTube. Right? So I'm watching the whole thing and it's like, well, I guess it suffers from that thing of you put all the best moments from your movie in the trailer.
Yeah.
Right? And now I'm like, when I watch the whole thing. Anyway. So, overall, what would you rate this special out of 10?
I'm pretty generous, so I'd say 6.5 to 7.
That's more generous than... That's actually more critical than I would have given it, to be honest.
Yeah?
No, I was
I'm thinking, the way I'm rating it, I really like YMS on YouTube, his rating system of everything starts at a 5, and it gets points higher or lower, depending on how good or bad it is. And it's like, it was, like I described earlier, it made me laugh. It was really entertaining. It flew by, but I don't remember any of the jokes except for the one he stole from the internet.
I'll say it's a 7 to 7.5. Yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot funnier things from comedians that aren't that hyped. Yeah. I look forward to his next special. I hope he does more stuff. I hope more comedians do this. I hope more comedians take it out, but that they do it in a way where their fans can access it and see it and not just disappear on Moment House.
Yeah.
I don't like that. It's not cool. It's not the end of Netflix. and not the end of Netflix specials. And they're going to keep going. They're going to keep trying. I just hope that they don't stop taking chances. They have finally agreed to put Tim Dillon on.
Yeah.
There's going to be a Tim Dillon Netflix special at some point.
You think it's just going to be like 20 minutes of beeps? They're just
gonna
going to bleep out everything?
And the share price of Netflix is going to drop like 80%. The whole company's going to crash and burn. And then Tim Dillon's going to put on those aviators and walk out of there.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Dude, he's so freaking good.
I promise we'll do a real episode where we review a Tim Dillon thing and stop.
Just any podcast.
Bringing him up into every other episode, but yeah, I don't know. I've been in one of my biggest sources of inspiration is the fact that someone like that can do a podcast, and that any comedian can really do their podcast. Do it. I'm not even a comedian, but I just enjoy that we can come in and talk about these things and then have a good time about it here on the show. We are building a website here for the Forest Creek. We're making AD work really hard over time.
He's the only one working.
I'm depriving him of food. We will have it up soon at www.theforestcreekweb.com. We're available everywhere else at The Forest Creek. You can find this podcast, of course, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, other places probably. SoundCloud?
Apple
Maybe?
Music?
I don't know. I've hit the limit on SoundCloud now, so they
You're
want
on
me
SoundCloud?
yeah, they want me to pay for it because there's a limit to how much you can put.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to make extra money off of these rappers.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. All right. My name is Raph.
I'm Jarrod.
We'll see you again soon. We got more episodes coming up. Stay tuned. I know it's taking me a long time to finish editing these, but I have to fire my family. That's the only way to get through this. Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.